must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Launching the BBI Task Force report. Makofi.
Your Excellency, I am very happy that the document, the recommendations and the proposals that have been put forward informs us on how to build institutions to get our politics away from personalities and ethnicities to institutions that will carry all of us irrespective of who we are, where we come from, the language we speak, or the political party we subscribe to.
Kusema ya kwamba pesa mingi ije mashinani, tunaunga mkono. Ipelekwe mpaka ifike kama kuanzia 35% kuelekea juu. Hiyo pesa itumike kwa mambo ya maendeleo, not for consumption. Recurrent expenditure should not be above 30%. 70% should go for development.
Ni kwa nini baada ya kila miaka mitano tunaenda miaka mitatu ya kazi, miaka ya 2 tunapoteza kwa sababu siasa imechacha? Tunataka tuulize wafanyabiashara wetu wenzetu, ni nini inawazuia? Ni nini tuwaweza kufanya ndio tuhakikishe ya kwamba biashara zenu hazisimami? We must have development plans that are 20 years plus if we are to resolve our problems, my brothers and sisters. Tunataka tuwapatie assurance ya kwamba wanaweza kupatia wananchi mikopo ya miaka 10, miaka 15, kwa sababu they have confidence ya kwamba Kenya will be stable and Kenya will always have leadership, whoever it is.
Mambo ya maendeleo ikiwa hatuwezi tukashikana pamoja sisi watatu, resources zile ziko Makueni na Machakos na Kitui haziwezi kusaidia watu wetu. Na ndivyo tumesema mara kwa mara tutakuwa tukifanya kazi pamoja. Kwa sababu tukifanya kazi pamoja watu wetu watafaidika sana. Kila mmoja wetu afanye kazi, wanawake, vijana, na kila mmoja wetu atakuwa ndani ya hii kukutana sisi watatu tukifanya pamoja. Tukiwa pamoja kama counties 3, manufaa itakuwa kubwa kwa watu wetu. Ndio tumesema siku ya leo tunakutana ili tuanze kuleta watu wetu pamoja, tukipanga hii mkutano wajue kila mmoja ako na nafasi, ili waseme hii ni yetu, sisiwe ya governors only.
Fighting for BBI is not a party affair. It is a leader's affair. It is not a Wiper, it is not a Maendeleo chap, it is not a NARC, it is not a Muungano affair. It is us coming together as a people. Tunashirikiana pamoja ndio BBI iweze kupita. Mimi sijasema eti namfuata mtu fulani ama mtu fulani ananifuata. Mimi nimesema ya kwamba nataka kufanya kazi ni viongozi wote ukambani ndio tuweze kufanya kazi pamoja kuweze kuwaletea watu wetu manufaa. Mimi nimemuuliza Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka nikamwambia mimi nitaomba kiti cha urais, mimi natarajia ataweza kuniunga mkono. Yeye amesema anaitisha kiti cha urais, anauliza pia tumuunge mkono. Profesa Kibwana pia anaitisha kiti tuunge mkono. Na nikasema kama nilisema kwa mazishi nikasema kwamba tutaamua ikifikia pale mkondo wa mwisho, tuamue ni yupi ambaye anaweza pigiwa kura Kenya nzima awe rais. Ni nani atayetuwakilisha kama pamoja tuwe rais? Ama na tukiwa kama upande wetu Ukambani, tukaonelea ni vizuri kama vile profesa amesema, tuangazie macho yetu ya kile tunachokitaka. Kama ni BBI, sisi BBI itatupatia nini? Haswa katika hali ya uchumi. Kwa sababu umaskini ndio umetuletea shida, matengamano hayo tunaona, mvutano, ni mwingi sababu ya umaskini. Tutanufaika kivipi? Tutapata manufaa yapi kutokana na BBI? Ndio tuweze kuishi pamoja. Kwa hivyo kama vile tumesema, tunafuatana. Mimi nimesitangaza nikasema tunaweza fanya kazi tukiwa tumeshikana. Kama sisi SEKEB tuko tayari kusukuma mambo ya BBI. Sisi viongozi wote Ukambani tunapaswa kuonyesha ya kwamba tunaweza fuata mfumo wa kupigania kitu kimoja bila siasa za kando za mchezo, ndio tuweze kuleta BBI.
Sisi tulizungumza pia na tukasema tunafurahi sana kwa sababu katika region yetu licha Kenya nzima, lakini katika region yetu kila mtu ana support BBI, na hapo ni mahali pazuri pa kukutania katika swala la katiba, na hilo ni jambo tunafurahia kwa sababu hatujasikia wahusika wakuu wowote wakisema kwamba hawataki BBI, na tukaona kwamba hilo ni jambo nzuri na ni jambo la kuwekwa nguvu zaidi katika hiyo BBI. Kwa kweli ikiwa uongozi utakuwa watu zaidi ya wawili wanashiriki, hilo ni jambo la kusaidia nchi yetu, kwa sababu kutakuwa hakuna watu wawili ama kutoka sehemu mbili tu wanaweza kuwa ndio wanashika uongozi peke yao, na hilo tukaona kwamba ni jambo nzuri. Pili, kwa sababu pesa zile zinakuja mashinani zitakuwa sasa ni kama mara 2 ama 3 kutoka 15% hadi 35 to 45%. Pesa hizo zikija katika ugatuzi itamaanisha kwamba watu wengi sasa watajua utamu wa ugatuzi sawa, na hilo ni jambo peke yake linaweza kufanya mtu apigie kura BBI, mtu yule anajua ugatuzi unafanya nini katika nchi yetu. Tatu, ili jambo la kuleta watu pamoja, hilo ni jambo la maana sana katika nchi, kwa sababu hakuna nchi inaweza kukua bila watu kuwa ni watu wamoja. Na zaidi zile pesa zinakuja katika hiyo BBI za 45% also kwa counties, ni jambo la maana sana. Tunaendelea na kusisitiza percentage fulani hiwe ni kwa vijana wale wako chini ya miaka 35, wafanye kazi zao za biashara za nini, na wao pia wajihisi ni wa Kenya. Hilo ni jambo la maana sana katika hiyo BBI, na bila kushirikia vijana kwa kweli BBI itakuwa ni kama ya umoja wa Kenya, ya ugatuzi na ya vijana. Hao mambo yakizingatiwa itakuwa kwa kweli ni kubadilisha katiba, kusaidia wa Kenya.
Na kutakuja watu ambao wataanza kuwadanganya watu wetu kuhusu BBI, waanze kuwapotosha. Hao ni watu ambao hawataki watu wetu wapate manufaa. Hatuwezi sema Kenya ilivyo hivi sasa iko sawa kabisa, na hali akina mama wetu hawana maji, vijana hawana kazi, barabara ni mashimo. Kuna shida katika eneo letu. Mtu yeyote atakayekuja aseme hatutaki BBI ya kulete mabadiliko, ya kulete uchumi na kuinua hali ya maisha, huyo mtu ni adui. Hatutakii mazuri.
Sisi counties 3 za Ukambani kama Wakenya wengine tumesema tuna support kabisa BBI, na ni kwa sababu hiyo ndio italeta Wakenya pamoja. Tukiangalia, na mimi nimeangalia sana kifungu ya 6 na 7, nasema hiyo inasema juu ya inclusivity. Kila Mkenya awe included in the leadership, in the decision making, in what happens in our day-to-day lives. And therefore that one we are supporting totally. Na ile ingine, na pia hiyo ni ya kuongeza, mnajua kina mama wameachwa nje sana where decisions are being made. And we truly this time saying that we cannot continue in the 21st century, see women sitting outside there and looking at what is happening inside offices through the windows. We want women inside where decisions are being made. So the top that is going to be expanded, and we support the expansion of the top layer of presidency, deputy presidents, and the prime ministers must be open more for women. We were actually talking about having the 3 top go to women, but it will be negotiated. But certainly we are pushing for that.
Good morning to you, and glad that you found time to join us today, the 27th of February 2020. My name is Miriam Agutu. The show is Good Morning Africa, and the station, as usual, is Punchline Africa Television, where we're coming to you right from Nairobi. Here it is a bit of a chilly morning. I don't know where the rains came from yesterday. I tell you, this climate change thing is for real. Some years back, it was very unlikely to get to experience the kind of weather we've been experiencing in this country, and so the weather patterns have changed. So it's very difficult to make predictions, and especially the people who rely so much on the weather, so they're able to even plant. The farmers, I think right now it's a bit of a challenge, but all the same, rain is a blessing, and so it is a beautiful day here in Nairobi. Just a few minutes past 12 a.m. Thank you. I don't know where you're watching me from today, but you're welcome, and let's start engaging with each other. And of course, for those who are here, I see a lot of Biafrans already present. We shall talk about that at the top of the hour during Diaspora Dispatches. But for now, as we usually do, I'll just take us through the news-making headlines across Kenya today, look at the leading newspapers, and then we shall look at also, I still have the BBI report, and I think it's very important. And the reason why it's very important is because these people who have been making rounds, the politicians who have been making rounds across the country to popularize this BBI report, have really done the people of this country a disservice. When they go there, they don't even care to highlight the things that the people of Kenya really want to know, so that should we come to a referendum, they will be well informed whether they want to vote for it or not, but at least they'll have the information. So our politicians have been doing the people of this country a disservice. So as I said, I've made it my responsibility to be coming with this copy here until we exhaust the whole content of this. So we look at it a bit by bit every day, even as we move forward and see how the remaining processes and the remaining meetings that are yet to be held. The next one will be happening in the central part of the country, and so over the weekend. And so we're waiting to see, will the tones change? We don't want to see a repeat of what happened in Iraq, that for a moment there nearly sent some tension in this country. As a leader, there are a few leaders seemed to have been supporting, ethnical bigotry. That is not what is very good for this country moving forward. And so majority of the people who come to speak and to address these meetings, I don't even think they've gone through the BBI report and what it really entails and the core of it. And the reason as to why even President Uhuru Kenyatta and Mr. Raila Odinga thought it was important for them to to start this BBI process with an aim of bringing Kenyans together. That is the core of this BBI report. But what we've been seeing from our leaders, I don't think it has been in tandem with what BBI is meant to stand for. So this was an excerpt from one of the from all the leading newspapers last week on Wednesday, and so the content as it is, of course, right now, of course, the BBI is still the team is still receiving, opinion and other things as they even get ready to finalize now a report, because this is still a draft. All right, so this was from the first part of what they collected from Kenyans, the opinions they collected from Kenyans, and so it was narrowed down and presented, and we've been going through it just to ensure that anybody who's supposed to get the information, anybody who's supposed to be informed, they actually get the information about the BBI and not the innuendos that we've been seeing the politicians do. They have hijacked this process and turned it into a very political process, and sober conversations have really not been part of those. A lot of the meetings we've been seeing, just a very few leaders are able to be level-headed when they're discussing this, but others, it's just very sensational, and they're off track when it comes to the BBI report. So I've made it my duty. I'll have Kenyans know, and those who are interested. So every day we shall be looking at just a bit of it for us to have a better understanding. So if we come to a referendum, you want to vote it. You want to not vote it, also not vote it, but at least you'll have the information and you'll make a decision that you feel is appropriate for you after having the decision. So my job is just to take us through the report, all right, and then you will decide as a Kenyan who will participate, or as anybody else who is concerned about the matters of this country. Thank you so much. I see you, Chol Makor, Chinedu, Jobag, Justice. Keep writing. I shall come with a lot of news from Africa, but not now. I have so much from South Sudan. I have so much from Biafra. I have so much from other parts of the continent. But just give me a few minutes so that I take us through the news-making headlines here in Kenya, and then at the top of the hour, I shall be coming back with what we call a diaspora dispatches, so that we look at the African news in details. All right, so bear with me, and let's enjoy this first hour of the show. So on the Star newspaper, the front pages there, Ruto allies rush to defend Sonko, take on Kenyatta. Now, details emerge on how the national government plans to run Nairobi. Remember, Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko handed over, the leadership of this county basically to the national government in a move that really shocked Kenyans. We did not see that coming because I don't know if it's even in the constitution, but we did not see that coming. This really, there's a lot of mixed reactions from this move. The others who are supporting, and they're saying, you know what, perhaps it was about time because Nairobi was not being managed in a manner in which Nairobi, as the capital city of this country and as the center of the economy of this country, Nairobi, has not been under the best management. And so having now the national government come in and take over very important aspects of running this city perhaps might improve the leadership and quality service deliverance and whatever it is that Nairobi brings to this country. And there are others who are saying, no, this was not called for. The people should have been consulted. And so it has been a mixed bag of reactions there. So let me just read that story on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper. And a battle for the control of Nairobi has erupted within Jubilee Party, with allies to Deputy President William Ruto opposing its takeover by the national government. Besieged Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko, who is facing 357 million Kenya shillings graft charges, and an impeachment motion has been a Ruto ally. Now, Ruto has previously made attempts to have the graft charges dropped, according to multiple sources. What is that? If he has been charged and there's proof to that, and something has already gone through the justice system, I think it's very appropriate, especially as a leader of this country, to just let the due process of the law take its place. If he's acquitted, well and good, he can be reinstated. He can go back to the office as the governor. So that is according to the Star newspaper. Apparently, our Deputy President, Dr. William Ruto, has really tried, has made several attempts to have the charges, the graft charges against Mr. Sonko dropped, but without so much success, because we've seen a few judges in that judiciary, as much as we sit here and lament a lot of times about judiciary and how some few bad elements there work to defeat, the law that they're supposed to be there to protect and to uphold, but the others who really, especially when it comes to the war against corruption, are really doing the part and doing what they should be doing in terms of delivering. Let me take a short break. I shall come back in just a bit, and then we will continue. Just a bit. I shall be back. Don't go too far. All right, it appears the production team was not ready. That's something I needed to be taken care of before, but let's just continue then. I think it has been handled. All right, so let's just continue with that. And Ogebio Mostu, good morning. Please keep it here. Guten Morgen to you watching from Germany this morning. All right, so the transfer of 4 critical county functions to the national government on Tuesday in a ceremony witnessed by President Uhuru Kenyatta yet again brought down another Ruto man. The move comes just 3 weeks after former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu, also a close ally associate to Mr. Ruto, was impeached in a humiliating fashion that exposed deep-seated divisions in the ruling party. In a strongly worded statement in the Senate yesterday, Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen dismissed the Sonko-Uhuru deal as illegal, and Murkomen said that arrangement will leave Nairobi a shell of a county. Also, the senator who represents Sonko in the graft case lamented an emerging pattern where governors are arrested, charged in court, barred from office, and subsequently impeached. And so, all right. So this is the leader of a Senate, the majority leader of Senate, a Senate there, Mr. Kipchumba Murkomen. He is from, of course, the ruling party, Jubilee. And also, he is one of the lawyers who are representing, who was representing Mr. Sonko, or who is representing Mr. Sonko, who is facing these graft charges in the court. There was a time this matter was brought up, and the conflict of interest that sometimes comes with some of these very high sensitive, matters. So I don't know if when Murkomen comes to the Senate and tries to argue this case, is he arguing as a senator who is concerned about the state of counties and what really happened, or is he arguing this matter as Mr. Sonko's personal lawyer? Do you see the conflict of interest there? And also, he is the majority Senate leader of the party, Jubilee Party, who's president and also the leader of the party, together with Mr. Sonko, also a Jubilee governor, agreed. So basically, he's speaking against what the top, his party leader has done. It's quite a very mixed, it's quite interesting. But the situation where Mr. Murkomen finds himself, I think it's very, I don't know what will be the right thing to do. There's a time this matter was challenged and is in court, and a motion, was to be introduced. I think members of parliament who are lawyers were not very happy about it, because you cannot be the person debating this matter that involves one of your clients, and then it's brought to parliament. You're supposed to debate over it, and you're supposed to find solutions over it, and yet you are the same person who will go and speak to your client. God knows, you can even take some information that you're not supposed to, your client is not supposed to know, because that is a complete conflict of interest. So Senate Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen is not very happy with what happened to Sonko, but also he is Sonko's personal lawyer. So when he brought this motion in Parliament yesterday in the Senate, I don't know from what point he was arguing this matter there. Was he arguing as Sonko's personal lawyer, or was he arguing as the Senate Majority Leader? We need to understand where he was coming from. But anyway, It is now he said it is now evident that now move to the next level where functions of a county government can be largely and more or less in a whole transferred to the national government. The county government is literally left as a shell with no functions to perform. The effect of this is that provides a hitherto unknown method of the unwinding up of county governments. So what basically Mr. Murkomen there was trying to say is that devolution is under threat. I'm not sure if this is true in its entirety, because we saw in the reason why Nairobi finds itself in this very unique position is because, first of all, Nairobi governor, Mr. Mike Sonko, after his deputy governor resigned, has refused to name his deputy governor for a very long time. So if he had named a deputy governor, so while he was still continuing with his, to clear his name in the courts, or while his case was continuing in our courts, Mr. Sonko, his deputy would have taken over some functions of this county. So there will be any dilemma as it has been since this case started. But Mr. Sonko refused to, find a suitable replacement of his deputy that resigned. Okay, because a place like Kiambu, even after Ferdinand Waitito was barred by the High Court to access his office, his deputy was very much present, and his deputy took over some functions that at his level as the deputy, and important key functions, continued. Nothing was really held there. Life continued in Kiambu, and even after Senate voted to impeach him, and then he went to appeal, life continued. Then he was after the gazettement of the impeachment, Mr. James Nyoro became the governor of Kiambu now, and he will be until the next elections, because that is how our constitution works. But for Nairobi, Mr. Sonko refused to name his deputy, and so he has been a lone ranger. He's been making some decisions without even consultation. He's been ruffling feathers, and sometimes he's very abrasive, and maybe and he can be totally unorthodox in the manner in which he delivers. When he speaks, when he's addressing some matters, he's more of a street approach person, and so there were some concerns about Nairobi having this kind of leadership. Nairobi is a very, very important, place and strategic place, not just as a capital city of Kenya, but also it serves a host of other important things. We have the United Nations, the UNEP headquarters here in Nairobi. We have other multi-international companies headquarters here in Nairobi. So the leadership of Nairobi requires somebody that is very temperament, the levels are not very temperament. The person with who is level-headed, who is very informed, a person who is knowledgeable, a person who has good leadership skills, a person who understands the political and the international dynamics of leadership and political dynamics. And I'm not saying Mr. Sonko did not have this, but sometimes he clashed with especially in the other side of the aisle, who thought he might not be a good representation and a good for this capital city. And so, because he's quite unorthodox, Sonko writes his own rules and follows them. He's quite unusual. So, and he has. He's in touch with the people, the lower level people, the people who voted him in. I think that he speaks their language, and so they elected him, and so he's been able to still keep in touch with that. So, and also, I don't know if he's been able to balance and see, as much as he's bringing this other side of, of the population, but also he's able to bring in this other side, the business people, the executives, other sectors, and just bring them together and try to find a medium and a balance so that Nairobi can run efficiently and everybody can find a seat on the table, so that Nairobi becomes even greater than it is now. So I don't know if Sonko has been able to achieve that, but we've seen, his cries and his the things that he does in the lower, in the lower class, estates and places here in Nairobi, and those are the majority of the people who voted him in. He speaks their language, and they understand him and they love him, and so he's been riding on that. He's been riding with it because those are the voters. A lot of middle class people in Kenya here are ridiculous as they come. They will be sending tweets and on Instagram taking selfies, they will not even go out and vote. So they will be talking, criticize the government and all that. When it comes to the voting day, they'll still be voting on Twitter. They'll not go and vote because they don't feel it's important. But the people who really want change, the people who feel this poverty is too much, we need somebody who can speak our language and perhaps will improve our livelihood and our lives, they take that step, and you'll find them waking up very early in the morning, starting to queue and voting. So if you get the leaders that you deserve. If you don't go out there and vote, then don't complain when somebody you don't like is voted in, because by you not coming out and voting, you helped him come to power. And so Sonko, as he was famously known as a man of the people, there's a section of this electorate here in Nairobi who really, really love him because of also some charity things, activity that he's been doing through a certain foundation that he has called Sonko Rescue. So he's been able really to be in touch with the people. So I don't know how this will play out, this handing over of power to national government, but also I wish Sonko would have tried to show leadership in a manner in which he reaches out to the other side of the aisle, so that everybody in Nairobi, whether you are of upper class or lower class or middle, whatever it is, but you live in Nairobi, you require a certain level of service, you have ideas or opinion and all that, but you feel you're part of and you're included in the decision making, which a section of the electorate here have not felt as if they have been included. And then also a lot of politics that comes with that. So that has really raised a lot of different mixed reactions. And also another story that we have been keeping you up to date. So I think it's important, even as we continue to receive some update, the killing of Officer Kinei, the Sergeant Kinei. So apparently the bullet that killed Sergeant Kipyegon, this is on the second page of the Star newspapers. The bullet that killed Sergeant Kipyegon Kinei was fired from a gun held at his chin, and he died at once. Now, post-mortem conducted yesterday has revealed the bullet exited through his forehead. Now, Chief Government Pathologist Johansen Oduor said the pistol was put at a firm contact with Kinei's skin under his chin just after the lower jaw bone and the trigger pulled. The examination was conducted together with 3 other pathologists representing Kinei's family. Also, the results, however, returned an inconclusive verdict on key questions surrounding the death of an officer who was working in the second highest office in the land. Now, Kinei, 33, worked at Deputy President William Ruto's Harambee House Annex office on the second floor where the DP's office is located, and his body was found in his single-roomed house at Villa Franca Estate in Imara Daima of Embakasi on February 20th. A police report shows the body was discovered by Charles Nganga at about 2 p.m. after he noticed a foul smell emanating from the house. Now, with the principal question of what killed him settled by post-mortem, what was unanswered in the question is who pulled the trigger. So if Kinei killed himself, then it would quantify as suicide, the initial narrative by the authorities. However, if he was shot by someone else, it becomes homicide. Kinei was expected to record a statement with the DCI in connection with the probe of 40 billion Kenya shillings fake arms deal involving former sports CS Rashid Echesa, and he was at work on the day Echesa and his co-accused are said to have visited the DP's office in the planning of the military tender. So, all right, that is the latest update from that unfortunate death of a very young man who still had his life ahead of him. He was only 33 years old. And so let's just see, even as the investigations continue. So we cannot speak much about that case. So I'll just read you the details as they are here on the Star newspaper. And there are some questions here I see on the front pages here regarding the same. Who pulled the trigger? Was Kinei murdered elsewhere? Question 3, how come there was very little blood in the house? Number 4, what was the motive for the killing or suicide? Number 5, when exactly did Kinei die, since his body had begun decomposing? Number 6, why would Kinei change into a vest and shoots then kills himself? And number 7, What did he know about Rashid Echesa and his guests? Number 8, who fired a shot at Kinei's ceiling board? And then number 9, was there another person in the room? And then number 10, the seat on which the body lay was pulled to reinforce the door. Who pulled the seat? Okay, I think, and that is something that the police and the people, and I think this case is being handled by the DCI right now. We shall get, I hope they get to the bottom of this, and these are very important leading questions that perhaps might lead us to finally, especially the family, to get to know the truth, so that even as they lay their kin to rest, they will know what really transpired on that unfortunate day. Something that has really worried Kenyans. Kenyans are not a very happy lot from yesterday because coronavirus scare, as 239 passengers from China have been let in the country. Come on now, government of Kenya, come on now. So Kenyans alarmed as government clears passengers from China to go home to self-quarantine in a reckless step that exposes Kenyans to the killer disease. Okay, this is important because I also need the details so that I know how to keep myself safe now. I'm worried. And the government is on the spot after 239 passengers on a plane from China were cleared to enter the country and asked to self-quarantine as a precaution against coronavirus. No. The arrival of the China Southern Airlines plane raises fears that one of the passengers could have the infectious disease, which has killed thousands so far. China has been the epicenter of the virus, which has infected 81,291 people globally and killed 2,770, most of them in the Asian nation. The novel coronavirus disease the novel coronavirus disease 2019, which has been officially named COVID-19, is most often spread from one person to another. Now, government spokesperson Cyrus Oguna, however, said there was no cause for alarm because all precautionary measures are in place and everybody who comes in the country is screened adequately. But did they have to come at this point, though? Because I know there are Kenyans who were stuck somewhere in Wuhan, the epicenter of where this coronavirus started, who have been pleading to be brought home, but the government have said it's not safe, and we agreed it is not safe for them to be evacuated from that area right now, or for them to be. So it's safer if they stayed there and just received the services that they required from there. So those are Kenyans who could not be allowed to come back, who are stuck there. But you're gonna bring the Chinese here, and I'm not being funny. It is because of the risks that comes with that. So right now, I think my hope rests on this statement by government spokesperson, who said they took the precautionary measures and they were able to screen these people. I hope to God they actually did this, because if not, I cannot tell you how many Kenyans are about to start dying because we are not even that prepared. I saw Nigerians castigating the government and about their preparedness, and a ridiculous statement the Minister of Health made in regards to coronavirus and the country's preparedness. So here, we are not really prepared. So I'm just hoping to God that what government spokesperson Mr. Oguna said, that they went through thorough, I didn't see thorough screening, I just saw screening, all right? That they took precautionary measures. At this point, I'm not even going to the airport. Glad I'm not even traveling anytime soon. But this is worrying. And somebody was just tweeting that the first case of coronavirus is in North Korea that was confirmed. That person was shot dead by the North Korean authorities, and we know right now it is an emergency in South Korea and other parts of the world. We cannot bring death to us, Mr. President. So I'll just go with what the government spokesperson has said, and have trust that the government really took the proper measures, and Kenyans are not exposed, or anybody who is in this country is not exposed to this, because this might not end up very good, if at all. Proper measures were not taken. And across the world, nobody from China is allowed to go. No plane from China is allowed to visit. Another one, was it they'd gone for holiday? Was it in Madagascar or Mauritius or Mauritania, one of those beautiful African countries? They were turned back. The whole plane was turned back to China. And we're going to let a whole plane of 239 people from China in the country? Mr. President, come on now. Just as a precautionary measure, I don't think they should have been allowed in this country. That should have been the precautionary measure, not have them come here and then we have a precautionary measure. But I'm just trusting that the Ministry of Health has this under control. And then that part there that really disturbed me is when he said that these Chinese are expected to go self-quarantine, and you really think they're going to do that? Have you not been seeing the news that have been happening? That ship that, I don't know, supposed to be docking in Japan, those people stayed in there for a very long time. Nobody was letting them out until, it was confirmed. And even in that, was it 11 people died who had that illness? Everybody was in a lockdown. And we're going to just have them come in. I know at this time the tourism industry is suffering, not just in Kenya but across the world, and in Africa especially. This time is usually a lot of tourists from that side of the world. Africa is their preferred destination. But no, thank you. Not at the cost of our people dying. At this point, I think that could wait. And so I hope that a government has very good reasons why they allowed this plane to land in here with all these people who potentially, maybe one of them has or not. I don't know if they were screened by the time they were leaving where they were coming from in China to come here, because globally, right now, 2,770 people have died and continue to die, and over 81,000 people have contacted this coronavirus. This is no joke, please. So, okay, I'm just trusting the government has this under control, because that is there's nothing else we can do. So I'm just hoping that the Ministry of Health did what was appropriate. And also the front pages of the Standard newspaper, we see Ruto is my student, says Raila. ODM leader sensationally throws the gauntlet to the deputy president, claiming he taught him the basics of politics and can beat him hands down in any political context. I think yesterday Raila was speaking on a local show, Point Blank, on KTN, and that is where he must have made those comments. I did not watch that show. I get home very tired. I just look for where I left my bed in the morning. So that is what he said there. So the story is on page 6 in the mornings, in page 6 on the Standard newspaper. And also top state officials split over Sonko deal. 2 senior officials in a high-level team are chaired by the Attorney General question his role during State House ceremony as a storm builds up over the deal. All right, so that this is a storm that has just started. This deal by Nairobi County governor and the national government. I don't think it's something that will go away very soon. I don't know if it's a Pandora's box that will open us to other things that we may not be wanting to deal with in this country and will intensify even the politics of the day. But this is something that appears will not go away very, very quickly. And the handing over will not just be a bed of roses, because Mr. Sonko is supposed to hand over officially on the 25th of March. So let's just see. But in the meantime, it has raised some storms, and some questions now are being asked. And the Attorney General was part of the deal assigning, so people are questioning his role, and the Attorney General is the government's advisor, their legal government advisor. So yeah, I think it was important for him to be there and to ensure that President Uhuru Kenyatta is doing the right thing according to our constitution. And if not, then Kenyans are very woke, and that is a matter that they will not let go very easily. And we shall continue seeing a lot of reaction and a lot of from that story. Still on the Daily Nation front pages, Ruto man fights Uhuru city takeover. Senate Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen tears into his party leadership's decision, saying it is flawed and in a breach of the constitution, as it was made without input of the people. And that is page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation there. And then the police story, was it suicide or murder? The jury is still out. And I read there a bit of that story on the Standard newspaper. So I will not even, talk about it again. Raila party stand on PM Cabinet Secretary. So ODM Chairman John Badi presents his party's views to the Building Bridges Initiative Task Force yesterday at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. The party wants all ministers and their deputies to be picked from among members of parliament. That used to be the order of the day, but with our new constitution that changed because they wanted to bring people who are professionals to head over the different dockets we have. But how has that worked for us? Maybe not quite good, but that used to be the standard procedure. That used to be what was happening during Moi's time and during, was it Kibaki? During Moi's time, that is what used to happen, and so he wants us to revert that, and we go back to the CSs and the PSs being nominated from the sitting members or elected members of parliament in the House, and maybe this will go a long way in reducing the wage bill. I don't know if it will do that, but it might. And all right, and also there's a part of the newspaper here. I saw, teachers refusing to return to stop the transfers of teachers who are not from northeastern part of the country. Remember, there has been complaints by the leadership of northeastern province about TSC transferring non-locals who have been running away from northeastern because of the insecurity that is in that area. I understand where TSC is coming from because I think lives are very important, but also I think that the children, the pupils, the students from that part of the country are now suffering because majority of the teachers there are from the other communities outside of the northeastern province. And so I don't know if they could meet, they could find a medium, but I think the only solution is for the security to be tightened. Otherwise, I'm not going to take myself into the butcher shop. No, I don't think anybody will do that, knowingly that 70% you may not make it, you'll be a target. That is a difficult decision to make, as much as they want jobs and they want to employment and all that, and an income. I think also lives are very important. And even as we talk about this, before a solution is found or before, a security situation in Northeastern is contained completely, then these teachers needs to be protected. So TSC has come out and said it's not sending, its teachers there whose lives they say will be at risk, and they've refused. And so let's just see how that will play out. All right, so let's just get into this BBI. And yesterday, as I was reading the chapter 5 of the divisive elections, and a lot of recommendations that addresses our unique needs, especially in forging a homegrown of auto. That word I couldn't even say from yesterday. I don't know why I didn't go and practice it. Autochthonous system for shaping executive power and representation. So we went through a few points. So I'll just allow me to finish the ones that remained yesterday, so that we're able to look at this BBI and why it is important, and why it has become the subject of discussion in Kenya, and why it has become even a subject of division, especially among the politicians, and why Kenyans are wondering what is it in this BBI. And as I said there earlier, the politicians have done Kenyans a disservice. They're supposed to go there and talk about this important document. It is important in the sense that Kenyans will be subjected to vote for it. So it's important for Kenyans to understand what is in this BBI, and the changes and the other opinions that the committee is still receiving. It will be incorporated. Kenyans need to be updated, so that when they go to vote, they'll know what they're voting for, what they're voting against. And so let me just do the public service for the Kenyans who've been wondering and who have not had an opportunity to get a copy of this BBI. And so we looked at we'll start at the Prime Minister, which I think we looked at yesterday, one of the proposals inside the BBI report, within a set number of days following the summoning of Parliament. After an election, the President shall appoint a Prime Minister, an elected member of the National Assembly from a political party having a majority of members in the National Assembly, or if no political party has a majority, One, who appears to have the support of a majority of members of parliament. And then G, approval by parliament. Now, the nominee for prime minister shall not assume office until his or her appointment is first confirmed by a resolution of the National Assembly, supported by an absolute majority vote of members of parliament. All right. So the prime minister who will be nominated by the president, that is what the BBI says, shall not assume office until his or her appointment is first confirmed by a resolution of the votes in the parliament, who with majority, absolute majority votes. All right. So I don't know if that will be a quagmire there, or that will cause another constitutional crisis in parliament. You know, our politicians sometimes, you don't know them; they can be very funny. And so, and then H, if the prime minister nominee is not confirmed, the president shall have another set number of days to make another appointment. This process shall continue until there is a successful nomination for prime minister, a measure to ensure that this process is not indefinite and that governance is continuous should be considered. The task force would also like to point out that some members of the public express concern that the use of simple majority may find it a challenge to guarantee inclusivity in Kenya politics. There were proposals made for raising the bar and requiring higher majorities. The task force members felt that this is a matter of a larger national conversation. So remember, the BBI is in the spirit of bringing Kenyans together, cohesion and unity. So that always have to factor in. And I can see that being brought up there, and in the manner in which even as confirming the prime minister of this country. And then a dismissal. The prime minister may be dismissed by the president or through a vote of no confidence in the National Assembly. And also J, leader of the official opposition. Now, the runner-up of the president election becomes an ex officio member of parliament, and the leader of the official opposition, if his or her party is not represented in the government, or of a coalition in parliamentary parties not represented in the government. All right. Let me just read that again. So, leader of the official opposition. So, the runner-up of the presidential election becomes an ex officio member of parliament. So, the number two in the elections. If the first one became the number two, the person who got the second most votes becomes the leader of opposition, but now becomes an ex officio member of parliament and the leader of the official opposition. So automatically he assumes the leadership of the official opposition if his or her party is not represented in the government, or of a coalition of parliamentary parties not represented in the government. I don't even understand what that point says, but there it is. The runner-up becomes the leader of opposition and is an ex officio if at all he was not elected, and if at all his party is not represented. But why? How? And yet he's the second. So something he must have been, elected for him to have come voted for him to have been number two. And also K, need for a strong opposition. The party or coalition of parties that is not in government shall be the official opposition. So automatically, if you're not part of the government coalition, like now Jubilee is a coalition of a number of parties who came together. Others were assimilated and dropped their names. Others kept their identity but still a part of the coalition. And so if you're not in Jubilee, so automatically you become a member of the opposition if you're not in the ruling coalition party or party. All right. And so the other one is a dismissal. The other one, that is number L, shadow cabinet, and the leader of the official opposition shall be enabled to have a shadow cabinet to challenge the government's position in parliament. This will include the ability to have adequate provincial of quality research on the policy and legislative policy enabled to have a shadow cabinet to challenge the government's position in Parliament. This will include the ability to have adequate provision of quality research on the policy and legislative agenda of the government. I think that is what even happens. We used to have that, the shadow government. I don't even hear about it anymore. And it used to be very vibrant. The opposition will have their own shadow cabinet, as we see even in the UK Parliament. We see the opposition have the shadow cabinet, cabinet who keeps the government in check in their respective, positions or cabinet positions. And also question time. The opposition will play a key role in prime ministerial and ministerial question time sessions in Parliament. Question time is an opportunity for MPs to question government ministers about matters for which they are responsible. We used to have this. Are we bringing back our old constitution? Because we used to have question time in Parliament because the ministers were nominated from the elected members of Parliament, so they were always in Parliament, and so we would have those sessions in Parliament, and that is the same thing in the UK. I think we have to decide. We want to pick the UK. I know Kenya's constitution, the 2010 constitution, is a hybrid, but and the things we seem to have gotten rid of that we had, I think, borrowed heavily from the UK, being that they were our colonial masters, so they left us with a lot of the things, and I think we stuck to that, so we got used to that. And so now, by wanting to change, it has been very difficult to get on with some changes that were made, prior to the promulgated constitution in 2010. So now we seems to be going back there and saying, you know what, we might have removed this, but it's not working very well for us. But I think now it's important for us to bring it back, and that's why constitutions across the world are subject to change and also to referendum, because sometimes you try something, you realize it's not working for you as a country, and so it is a document that can be changed, and that's so some of these things. These are things that we must go for a referendum. These are very important matters when it comes to the how Parliament is constituted, and our constitution says if it touches on that, then our country has to go for a referendum so that Kenyans decide: do we want that? Do we want an executive prime minister? Do we want a prime minister who is nominated, appointed by the president? What kind of executive do we want, and what are some of the changes are we comfortable with? So we vote if you want or not. Kenyans will have that opportunity. And also, number two, the role of Prime Minister. Now, the Prime Minister shall have authority over the supervision and execution of the day-to-day functions and affairs of the government. The Prime Minister shall be the leader of government business in the National Assembly. On the President's tasking, the Prime Minister will chair cabinet subcommittees. In the exercise of his authority, the Prime Minister shall perform or cause to be performed any matters or matter with the President directs to be done. The Prime Minister will continue to earn his or her salary as a member of Parliament, with no additional salary for the prime ministerial role. So no hefty perks here. But these people, when they go to Parliament, they always change, especially anything that touches on their money. Don't play with the politicians in this country. They are the highly earning politicians in the world. Even South African politicians were complaining in their own parliament, saying Kenyan politicians are living large. They're living their best life. They have assistants, they have secretaries, they have offices, they have bride drivers, they have security, and they don't have all of that. And so they amend. When it comes to them, they're very selfish. So they will amend all of this. Before you know it, if it takes an act of parliament for the amendment, they will do it as long as it benefits them. And the permanent secretary, the permanent and principal secretary in the office of a prime minister will chair the technical implementation committee of principal permanent secretaries. And also, to avoid the politicization of the public service, the permanent or principal secretaries will not be subject to parliamentary approval. Their accountability will be strictly administrative and technical. All righty now. So I think that now let me take us just through so that we finish up with this. Well, it's a lot. The chapter 5 is a lot, but let me just finish up with this point, and then tomorrow we shall pick on something else. A mixed cabinet. So I'm just reading through the BBI report for those who really don't know what is really contained and why this hula baloo and what really is in this report. So I've been reading sections of it here for Kenyans as it is, as it was provided for us, so that some Kenyans can be clear about some of these things that our politicians keep misleading us about. You know, they just give a piecemeal according to whether they support or do not support the BBI. So they just give you their own version of what they think, interpretation of what the BBI is. So I'm just reading for you word to word so you can decide whether you want the BBI or not. But information is power, right? So the cabinet is a crucial part of the executive arm of the government. There is a disconnect with the current system, judging from what Kenyans told the task force. The task force proposes that the cabinet be structured as follows. The president will appoint cabinet ministers after consultation with the prime minister. What? Not the vice president. Okay. And then the ministers shall be responsible for the offices that the president establishes in line with the constitution. And then the cabinet shall be drawn from both parliamentarians and technocrats, with the latter being made ex officio members of parliament upon successful parliamentary approval. And the task force is also recommending that the cabinet secretary be renamed a cabinet minister. So we took up the US, the way they call the cabinet secretaries. We still call them ministers because that is what we've been calling them since we got independence until 2010. So it has been difficult for us. I struggle with that myself. So they wanted to go back to cabinet ministers. That will make no. That is a non-issue. Whether cabinet minister, whether cabinet secretary, are they performing? I think that is the bigger question now. To ensure more effective political direction and parliamentary accountability, there shall be a position of minister of state that will be appointed from members of the National Assembly and taking direction in their ministerial duties from cabinet ministers. These ministers of state will continue to earn their salary as members of parliament with no additional salary for their ministerial role. All right, so I know I've taken us through very, very quickly, but in a nutshell, that is just part of the things in regards to solving divisive elections and how perhaps some of these very important dockets and things, should they be done right, that perhaps you may not see, some sections of Kenyans feeling they've lost, or others feeling they've won and they've taken everything, or others feeling they're not really represented because their person lost. So they're just trying to build a bigger table that can accommodate a lot of Kenyans at the top, so that everybody feels represented. And so that is my end of public service today, in line with just letting Kenyans know what is in the BBI, so that you have the information. And so when you have the information, you're empowered. Whatever choice you make it from an informed perspective. All right. So we are going to take a short break. When I come back, Diaspora Dispatches, I'll come with it, and then we shall look at a lot of things that are happening in the continent. And so please don't go too far. Join me in the other side of the break on another link that will be started just in a short while. So I'll see you in a bit.
must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
We discuss Africa. We see what ails Africa. And today, this afternoon, we want to see whether Sudan will permanently remain a sick child of Africa. Is it a permanent sickness? Can we resolve the issues of Southern Sudan? Is it something that has gone wrong for 200 years? There has always been a problem in Southern Sudan, in that great region, starting from all the way the Alimadi wars and the rest of all what happened until today. Peace seems to be elusive. Why has UN taken slow action? Why hasn't UN set up a tribunal? We want to see a tribunal that will make sure that Southern Sudan people are accountable. Those who committed crimes against the human beings. 20,000 Sudanese perished. They are perished. They are not accountable. Nobody can account for them. And we cannot sit here, go on hammering peace agreements without mechanisms of accountability. If we set a tribunal for Sierra Leone, for Rwanda, for Camera Rouge, we need somebody to stand up for the poor masses, the masses that have died, the masses that continue to die, the masses that are being brutalized, murdered, maimed on a daily basis by marauding armies of both Riek Machar and Salva Kiir. There must be an accountability. You are not going to sit here and tell people there is no accountability in Southern Sudan. There must be a tribunal. Why do we run to harass countries of Kenya, put ICC on Kenya, put ICC on this country, put ICC on Central African Republic? Why have we delayed on putting a tribunal for Southern Sudan to find out who is killing, who has been killing, how they have been killing people? Let me speak for the people in Southern Sudan, the women, the children who have not gone to school, the children who have no medicine, the children who have nothing, who have been running since 2013, and the war cannot end because of two people. Let them face the tribunal. I'm not going to keep quiet as a Pan-African to see Southern Sudan being maimed, being tortured, being cut, dismembered, and we keep quiet and watch people vote images of people, of malcontents singing to us in Uganda, in Kenya, in Ethiopia, in South Africa, telling us they have money. Let them face the international tribunal and tell the tribunal who gave them the guns, where they buying them, how they were killing people. Enough of is enough. Enough is enough for Africa. We have had enough. There is no need of that anymore. Enough is enough. And if people have died, they will not cry. We people who are left on planet Earth must cry for them. We must find justice for them. We must make sure that there are leaders who go on bragging on television stations all over the world, who are accountable. They must be behind bars.
Good afternoon. This is Diaspora Dispatches, where we get to look at now the news-making headlines across the continent. The first show we were looking at, which was Good Morning Africa. We were looking at the news-making headlines here in Kenya. We went through the headlines of the key newspapers here, as well as the BBI document. As I said there earlier, I've made it my business to ensure that Kenyans get the right information so that when they decide, they will decide decide based on what is in the BBI, not what the politicians and the misinformation they're getting, from them. So that is not what we want to talk about. But before we get into what is making headlines, just coming in, His Excellency Frank Walter Steinmeier, that is the President of the Federal Republic of Germany, departs after his 4-day visit in Kenya, seen off by Foreign Affairs CS Ambassador Rachel Omamo and his East African community counterpart Aiden Duale. So the German president has been in Kenya for the last 4 days, and so he's departing and he's going back to Germany. So I hope that his visit and the cooperation between Kenya and Germany might or will go a long way in boosting especially our manufacturing industry. Germans, they're very good when it comes to the things that they do, and there are few things that we can borrow. And I love the fact that Germans, they're not too much into the African, politics. Only in one country, that is in Namibia, where the majority of not the majority, 6%, is it 6 or 7% of the population own about, is it 70% of the land or more? Is it 80 or something? It's ridiculous. So a majority of the white people are Germans, and also the white Boers, the Afrikaners from South Africa, and so they own over 50% of Namibia's land. And so President of Namibia has been seeking for ways. He's been very diplomatic about it, but now he said he'll start being a bit masculine in the manner in which he will handle this land matter there in the country, and that might not work out very well for him. As we have seen, the land issue in Africa has been very murky, and the countries that have tried, like Zimbabwe, the EU, and all of the rest of white people's countries over there, they made sure that Zimbabwe became an example of what sanctions can do, or if you even interfere with their interest, what they can do to your country. So thank you so much. Thank you, and I appreciate our viewers. I see someone is watching us from Libreville, Gabon. Thank you, Ebuz Udoka, and Michael Gruns. You're watching from Germany. Hey, guten Morgen. And that is a German name, if I'm not wrong. And Wakama Josephat, you're watching from Biafra land. Keep writing. Doctor is not here, but he shall be with us here later in the afternoon. So this is Diaspora Dispatches. Just now get a look at the news making headlines across Africa. And in case you're wondering, my name is Miriam Gutu, so you're welcome, and thank you so much for tuning in. So usually what we do, I'll take us through some of the news items, and then we shall come back and look at the outstanding ones and just discuss them further. So normally your participation through commenting and engaging with me is what makes the show a success. So you're welcome. Continue, and I shall be reading your comments after I'm through, and even as we continue with the show. All right. We start with Egypt, where a military funeral has been held in Egypt yesterday for the former President Hosni Mubarak, who died on Tuesday, aged 91. The current President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi walked alongside Mubarak's sons, Alaa and Gamal, in a procession behind his coffin as it was taken to the Field Marshal Tantawi Mosque in Cairo. The government has declared 3 days of national mourning, and Mubarak was forced out of office by an Arab Spring, popularizing uprising in 2011 after 30 years in power. We go to Ethiopia, where the country will not attend this week's latest round of U.S. brokered talks on a disputed Nile Dam project with Egypt and Sudan, the country's water ministry has announced. Ethiopia will skip the talks in Washington, D.C. on Thursday and Friday because the country's delegation hasn't concluded its consultation with relevant stakeholders, the Ministry of Water, Irrigation and Energy announced on its Facebook page on Wednesday. A final deal on the massive Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam was expected this month, but the United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, on his Ethiopia visit last week, said an agreement may now take months as a great deal of work remains. And we go to Somalia, where the International Monetary Fund says it has secured more than 330 million US dollars in debt relief for Somalia. This brings the country a crucial step closer to receiving forgiveness for its 5.3 billion US dollars debt and accessing new resources. The IMF said the funding pledged by its members showed that Somalia was committed to financial reform despite what it described as very challenging circumstances. And we all agree. And we're still staying with Somalia, and the 3 former presidents and 2 ex-prime ministers have stepped up their opposition for the re-election of Somalia President Mohamed Abdullahi alias Farmajo. Now, former president's campaign against the re-election of the current president, and he's facing criticism after passing a contentious electoral law that has been opposed by a section of politicians and clan leaders. The former Somali leaders have also accused the president of opposing dissenting voices and giving government jobs to his cronies. Farmajo has also faced a backlash for his hard stance and standoff with regions like Jubaland and Puntland. 3 former presidents and 2 ex-prime ministers have said they will not be supporting his re-election. We go to Tunisia, where now the new Tunisian government, led by Prime Minister Elias Faak, has won a vote of confidence in Parliament. After more than 14 hours of debate, members of Parliament voted 129 to 77 with 1 abstention in favour of the new cabinet lineup. President Kais Saied had threatened to dissolve Parliament and call early elections if the confidence motion was lost. Habib Jemli, who was previously nominated by Islamist Ennahda Party, failed to get his cabinet endorsed by Parliament. Mr. Faak's new government faces an uphill task in reviving Tunisia's economy and tackling high unemployment. And we go to Guinea, where President Alpha Conde has suggested publicly for the first time that he could run for a 3rd term if the constitution is changed, a move likely to fuel further unrest. Guineans vote on Sunday in parliamentary elections, and a referendum on a constitutional reforms could allow the 81-year-old to stand again. You're 81. Just go already. And the prospect of him staying longer in office has already led to months of sometimes very violent protest. In an interview with Le Figaro newspaper that was published on Wednesday, Conde said the 2010 constitution was bad and needed modernizing. Now, Conde's first election victory in 2010 raised hopes for democratic progress in the former French colony after 2 years of military rule and nearly a quarter of a century under authoritarian President Lansana Conté, who died in 2008. And then we go to Zambia, where Zambia's founding president Kenneth Kaunda has called for an end to the mysterious gas attacks on homes and public buildings in the southern African nation. At least 50 people suspected to be behind the attacks have been killed by mobs since the case was reported in December. In one mob attack last week, a man joined a crowd and was beating up a suspect, not aware that it was his uncle. The suspect was killed by the mob. And still in Zambia, on a very lighter note, but not quite, authorities in Zambia have seized a Bugatti Veyron that was imported into the country on Monday, pending investigations into possible money laundering. The state investigative wing said that they had received numerous concerns from the public since the car arrival on Monday. Bugatti has been the top trending topic on Twitter in Zambia, with the people commenting about and sharing the pictures of the luxury car. Reports say it is the first ever of its brand in the country, and the owner of the rare Bugatti Veyron is not known, although industry experts estimate that the cost of that car is about $2 million to $3 million US dollars. The car's seizure has not gone down well on Twitter, with some Zambians arguing that other stories of possible corruption and money laundering activities by government officials have not been investigated. And you know what? I agree with Zambians. All right. I don't think, I don't know. But that story was trending yesterday. I don't know if you were on or somewhere on Twitter, and the Bugatti story was trending. I don't know. It was like a work of what? Why? It was a wonder. I think we see enough of them in these movies or abroad with these celebrities. So I don't know why it was a big deal, but apparently for car lovers there in Zambia, it was such a big deal, and the photos were being shared all over social media from the time that car came. I think it was brought in through a plane there in Zambia. And Zambia is number 5 when it comes to the list of the most poor countries in the world. So perhaps you'll understand why this will be marvelous, to Zambians. I don't know. And South Sudan, a senior South Sudanese official has rejected criticism by the United Nations Human Rights Council that his country is a serious violator of human rights. Now, Samuel Luate Lominsuk, Director General of Multilateral Affairs of South Sudan, praised the decision and the compromises made by his government, which he said enabled the formation of a national unity government. His government is negotiating peace with South Sudan Opposition Alliance, he said, adding that peace talks with Sudan in the capital Juba are making progress. Okay, and still with South Sudan, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, now says that South Sudan's First Vice President Mr. Riek Machar is now fully freed from house arrest, giving him room to start working. Mr. Ismail Wais, the Special Envoy for Regional Bloc IGAD, says Machar will no longer face restrictions of house arrest or require special permission to travel in the region. He can now fully enjoy his rights and freedom, and the Djiboutian diplomat told journalists in Juba after meeting members of Dr. Machar's party, the Sudan's People's Liberation Movement in opposition, SPLMIO, and Dr. Machar has been put under house arrest by IGAD following the 2016 fallout with President Salva Kiir. And still staying with South Sudan, and an alliance of groups in South Sudan that had not signed the peace agreement have reached out to be included. Now, South Sudan's Opposition Movement Alliance, SSO MA, has urged the transitional government of national unity to engage them in talks so that they can all work towards a lasting peace. And just a quote from SOMA, they say, we encourage the new transitional government, the TJNU, to use this opportunity to engage in real and substantive negotiations in the way forward to achieve peace in South Sudan. Now, the alliance had signed a declaration of cooperation with the government on January 12th, known as a Rome Declaration, in which they pledged to start fresh negotiations to achieve sustainable peace through addressing the root causes of the conflict in the country. I wonder what they think these root causes are. You know, they normally have their own version, especially the leaders of South Sudan. Yeah? Or a lot of our leaders, they normally have their own ideas of what the problem could be. So it will be interesting to see what list they come out with that they consider to be the root causes of why South Sudan is where it is today. That list will be interesting to sit here and discuss with you, because I'm sure it will not be part of what we think the problem is there in South Sudan. And I hope ego will be number 1 in that list, and then number 2, selfishness, and then number 3, other matters that affect South Sudanese. All right? We move to Cameroon, where Cameroon's Constitutional Council has ordered a rerun of the February 9th National Assembly election in a majority of the crisis-prone English-speaking regions due to the allegations of the widespread irregularities and fraud by President Paul Biya's ruling Cameroon's People Democratic Movement Party, which was declared the winner. Now, the opposition Social Democratic Front that filed the complaint says it is ready for the rerun as the Constitutional Council's verdict cannot be appealed. So the opposition party, of course, the Social Democratic Front, have really expressed their happiness when Clement Atangana, who is the Chief Justice of Cameroon's Constitutional Council, pronounced the verdict calling for the rerun of the February 9th National Assembly election in the majority of the crisis-prone English-speaking regions. That is the Anglophone region, also known as the Ambazonian. So I don't know if you're from Ambazonia. I don't know if you're prepared to go for another election there. Paul Biya is planning to have a repeat of not Paul Biya. He thought he won, but. Opposition party here went to challenge some of how election was conducted in the Anglophone region, and the Constitution Court ordered for a rerun. So I don't know if Ambazonians, are you ready to go vote this time? Because I know the last time you did not want to vote. So I don't know if you'll be participating in this vote this time round, because it is targeting just the Anglophone region there in Ambazonia. All right. So please tell me what you think about this rerun that was ordered by the Constitutional Court Chief Justice, Mr. Clement Tangana. And is it a sign of perhaps a change might come to Cameroon through strong institutions of justice? And I don't know, is it a sign of better things to come in terms of democracy and strong institutions there in Ambazonia, in Cameroon? And how does this even affect you, if at all you even care? And you from Ambazonia, I'm sure, as I see one of you already has said here, Akamachula Ella, you're saying no election in Ambazonia. Okay, all right. So they're saying they'll come back and the elections will happen. I don't know who is going to vote there, but we shall talk about this. Let's just go to Tanzania. And two guarantors of a bond granted to Tanzania opposition politician Tundu Lissu have requested the court to allow them to withdraw their sureties, paving the way for a warrant of arrest against him for allegedly jumping bail over a sedition case. Now, the Kisutu Resident Magistrates Court in Dar es Salaam is expected to rule on the request on March 10th. Robert Katula and Ibrahim Ahmed had based their bond on their belief that Mr. Lissu, who has been out of the country since September 2017, seeking treatment for gunshot wounds sustained in an assassination attempt in Dodoma, needed the time to recuperate and therefore had justifiably been unable to attend case hearings as required since then. But I think Mr. Tundu is worried for his life. So even after recuperating and fully healing, he has refused to return back to Tanzania. Remember, he's facing very serious charges there of sedition. Sedition is when you incite the public against the government and they attract the maximum penalty. I don't know. It's a very serious charge there. And those are some of the charges that the Ambazonia leaders are facing now, among other very serious criminal, charges there in Cameroon. All right. Remember, they were brought back from Nigeria by force. Yeah, it's a whole story. And so in Guinea-Bissau, prayers, amen. You're saying the re-election, the rerun of the election, it does not make any sense to you. Well, the court has said you guys must come out this time and vote. I don't know if you'll be voting, but that is the order from the Constitutional Court Council there in Cameroon. They're saying Anglophones, the elections that happened in that region were not okay, and President Paul Biya's party really rigged and was heavily acting on corruption, and there was widespread irregularities that warranted all the elections from that region to be cancelled, and so there will be a rerun. So be prepared to vote. But as you have always said there, you don't really care about that process there from Anglophone. We go now to Guinea-Bissau, where the Guinean National Electoral Commission is confirming the victory of President-elect Mr. Umaru Sissoco Embalo, giving him license to proceed to take oath despite a court challenge from his opponent, Domingos Simões Pereira. Now, the move came on Tuesday by the National Electoral Commission. They write it in French, so the abbreviations are from CNE. It's written in French, so let's just call it the Electoral Commission there in Guinea-Bissau. Could raise new controversy as Mr. Pereira, who is the opposition, who challenged this, had challenged the decision to award a victory to Embalo delaying the swearing in. Now, in January, the Electoral Commission said that the December 29th rerun polls, electoral results saw Mr. Umaro Sissoco Embalo of the Movement for Democratic Alternative as the winner with 53.5% of the votes that were cast. And President-elect Umaro Sissoco Embalo maintained on Sunday that he will be sworn in as the country's head of state Thursday, even without the Supreme Court of Justice validation over his victory. I'm almost feeling sorry for the people of Guinea, because when you have such a leader like this, whose interest of the country does not come first, and respect of the rule of law, that you will lift your hand and put your hand, I don't know if you're a Christian in the Bible, if you're not, the religious book there, the highest religious book that you subscribe to, and then take an oath of office to defend and protect the same constitution that you want to work with impunity and disregard, just rubbish it all. And then I don't know what constitution you'll be swearing in to protect there, Mr. Embalo. Remember, the elections happened in Guinea-Bissau in December, but even leading to that, there were protests over the process and all that. So it was a bit chaotic. So the elections were held. And due to the high irregularities and electoral malpractice that were witnessed during these elections, the opposition, or the person that came number 2, went to court to challenge this. So the case is still being in court. And remember, on Monday, the court came out. The Supreme Court of Guinea-Bissau came out and said the swearing-in cannot happen until this case is heard and determined. Matter of fact, it called for vote count for the presidential, ballot votes that were cast. So that is a process that is happening there, and a whole person who's supposed to be a whole head of state, or the person who is said to have won this, is now coming out to say that it does not matter. He was supposed to be sworn in today. Today is the 27th. So I think the vote counting has not completed yet. So he's saying he will be sworn in on Sunday, come what, come rain, come sunshine, regardless of whether the case that challenges his win in the Supreme Court is heard and determined. So it does not matter. So I don't know if he's worried it might go the way it happened to Peter Mutharika. Peter Mutharika was also sworn in, but after that, the nullification of his win, his null and void. The win is null and void. So I don't know if Mr. Embalo, I don't know, by him insisting on being sworn in, does he understand what a precarious, situation he is actually putting Guinea-Bissau in? Because if you are the head of state and you want to just go outrightly acting against their own constitution that you saw, but that you're about to swear to uphold and protect, and now you're saying that it does not matter. On Sunday you will be sworn in, and as the country's head of state, even without the Supreme Court of Justice. He said that on Sundays, but he was supposed to be sworn in today. Whether the Supreme Court of Justice validation over his victory, it does not matter. Whether the Supreme Court, the decision, it doesn't matter. He'll be sworn in as the head of state. That is very, very dangerous. See the kind of people we have as leaders in this continent. They don't even care about the Constitution. I don't understand how Guinean are not coming out and condemning this matter. So let's just see if at all he will go on and swear himself. And I don't think the Chief Justice of that country, who could be one of the panel who are listening in the Supreme Court, he is one of the people who are supposed to be listening to this court, and he's the one who's supposed to be officiating the oath of office. I think the Chief Justice of a country. So I don't know if he'll have his own swearing-in ceremony by himself. I don't know who will conduct this, but this sets Guinea-Bissau, this sets this country to a tipping point. Should he go ahead and insist, regardless of this Kate, that is yet to determine whether he is the winner of this election or not. But insisting he'll go on and be sworn in, I think this is a recipe for a civil war in a country. This is a recipe for a country becoming a banana republic. This is a recipe for for leadership that is not very healthy for not just Guinea-Bissau, or for any country at all. Because if you have such a person with such a mentality and outright disrespect of the constitution and the law of land, you don't need that person to lead you at all. At all. And just for that reason by itself, that disqualifies him as to be even the president of that country. Whether he even won the election or not, he should wait at least for the Supreme Court of Guinea-Bissau to make its ruling and then continue. And these problems from this Guinea, we've seen there even in Guinea, President Alpha Conde also has his own things that he's doing that is really setting that country for a possible, breaking out of, for a possible instability in the coming days. So anyway, we go to Amazonia. Human Rights Watch have accused government, security forces and armed ethnic Fulani of deliberately killing at least 21 civilians, including 13 children and one pregnant woman in Ganbu, Donga Mantung division of the northwest region of Cameroon on February 14, 2020. According to the most recent report from the international human rights body, the incident happened a day after government forces, security forces and armed Fulani stormed the Ganbu village. So you see, Amazonia, Biafrans, apparently you're not the only people who are suffering from these attacks from the herdsmen. Amazonians, apparently from reports from the Human Rights Watch, are saying that government forces together with Fulani herders the people who attacked and caused the deaths that happened there on February 14th. And so I don't know if the government of Mr. Paul Biya will act on that at all. And I don't know what Nigerian president will have to say about that. And speaking about Nigeria, and now the Catholic Bishops' Conference in Nigeria on Wednesday said that the federal government had not shown a willingness to end the spate of killings by Boko Haram insurgents and herdsmen in the country. Now, the country bishops who stated this in a statement by their president Agustin Akubeze and Secretary Camillus Umo said the failure of the government to arrest the criminals showed its insincerity and lack of commitment to protecting lives and property in the country. The body now is now appealing to the international community to come to the aid of the Nigerian government in the fight against Boko Haram insurgency and Fulani terrorists who want to graze what they said our country. You know how I feel about this already. So, also in Nigeria, a Nigerian army corporal fighting insurgency in the northeast has shot dead 4 of his colleagues and injuring 2 others. The acting director of Army Public Relations, Colonel Sajir Musa, said in a statement that the unnamed corporal also shot himself during the shock incident, and which took place at the Army Super Camp 15 kilometers located Malam Fatori, Borno State, in the early hours of Wednesday. According to him, the 2 injured soldiers were rushed to a military hospital in Maiduguri, and Musa said the army hierarchy had ordered investigation into the matter. All right, so that is the latest there, and I just ended with very disturbing reports there from Nigeria. And this is something, Biafrans, you've been saying here time and time again. And as we continue to look at and put a spotlight on the situation in Nigeria and the insecurity, and we shall have in the afternoon a program that will really focus on this, and we will talk about it in at length. But there's something that Biafrans, you've been bringing up every now and then about, the government of Nigeria incorporating what now they're calling the repentant Boko Haram recruiting them back into the Nigerian army. And some of these claims have been rubbished by Nigerian authorities. So now these are soldiers who was situated at a part of the northeastern part of the country, and their mandate was to fight Boko Haram. So they are on duty there, and they're hoping that is what they're all there to do. Before you know it, one of them turns against the rest, murders 4, injures 2 more, and kills himself. Tell me if this was not what do you make of that? They're supposed to be fighting Boko Haram. They've been sent on a mission. The mission is very clear. We're here to protect our people. We're here to fight Boko Haram. Goes ahead and shoots his 4 colleagues while they're on duty, injures 2 more who are nursing very serious injuries right now, and we're not sure if they'll make it, but we're praying that they do, and then shoots himself. What do you think could have been the reason why this soldier did this? Do you think this soldier was, now, we're just trying to understand what could have gone behind this, and some of the claims and some of the things that have been said, and some of the questions that I think I was raising here yesterday and the other day about this bill that already had passed the first reading there in Senate there in Nigeria, about incorporating back, the Boko Haram repentance back to the society. And others, as Biafrans have been saying, have been incorporated and have been absorbed in the Nigerian army. And I was raising this question here yesterday and the other day, because we've been talking about Boko Haram. We have to talk about this. South Sudan, they're working on the peace process. We'll just be talking about the updates and just keeping those leaders in check. And we shall talk about them in a short bit. But the insecurity in Nigeria right now is something that the continent cannot ignore. So we have a duty. So we shall be looking at this every day and seeing what is it that Mr. Buhari is doing. And we shall be calling him out for allowing this. Even as the Catholic Bishop Conference there in Nigeria had a meeting yesterday, and they said, this is what the bishop said, that the federal government had not shown willingness to end the spate of killings by Boko Haram insurgents and herdsmen in the country. We have been saying this for months now. We have been singing this song here. We've been trying to highlight this matter. So the bishops, the Catholic bishops of Nigeria, had a meeting yesterday to talk about this very important matter, the insecurity or the lack of security in Nigeria and how it's affecting Nigeria. But what they should understand is this matter is affecting Africans, not just Nigeria. This menace have spread in other countries in Africa. So we have to speak about it. We have to call President Muhammadu Buhari out. We have to make him act, and very, very quickly. And if he cannot do that, Nigerians, do yourself a favor. I don't know what your constitution says, but I know here we can have a vote of no confidence, and then we can have a leader who can actually lead us, all right? I don't know what your constitution says about a leader who seems to be very incompetent and who cannot handle the security of his country. So the Catholic bishops did not mince their words after that meeting yesterday, and they came out and said the president has been, and his government have been very unwilling to fight Boko Haram insurgents and herdsmen in the country. That is the Fulani. Just a few minutes, I was reading that news from Amazonia, where it is Fulanis and the Cameroonian army who killed the innocent Amazonians, that unfortunate incident that happened on the 14th of February. So you see, it's not just the Biafrans who are suffering. This menace, this bad manners, this insecurity is being imported in other parts of Africa. So we must speak now. So the Catholics came out. They had a conference to just speak and address this matter. And they called out President Muhammadu Buhari, and they said, your government is not willing. But we have been saying this. We've been saying this for the last, I can't even tell you how long. We've been talking about this insecurity in Nigeria. Why are these leaders, I'm not saying what they're doing is not right, but why have they waited until it's what looks like too late? Why have they been sitting down and just wait this government not caring, not acting, and not taking this matter seriously, and they did not call out this president in good time? So many innocent lives have been lost in Nigeria. There's no week that passes by. There's no Monday that I sit here and I don't have a news about Boko Haram and the chaos they caused over the weekend, because a lot of times they target Christians while going to church, and even some Muslims have suffered. All right? Because they're extremists. So if you're even a moderate Muslim, you're a target. So they're targeting, but a majority of the time, they're targeting, the Christians there. So now the Catholic bishops, they came here and they're saying that the government of President Muhammadu Buhari had not shown willingness to end the spate of killings by Boko Haram insurgents and herdsmen in the country. And the herdsmen, of course, comes from President Buhari's own tribe there. So he has allowed them to just run the country and cause a lot of mayhem and maim people in that country. Why are the rest of Nigerians not talking? Are they not affected? Why is this now only a Biafran matter? Are there other Nigerians who are the majority of the people who are being killed in the north especially? Why are they silent? Why are they not demanding for action? Their silence is complacency to what is happening in Nigeria. All right? So now, the Catholic bishops who stated this in a statement by the President Augustine Akubeze and Secretary Camillus Umo said that the failure of the government to arrest the criminals showed its insincerity and lack of commitment to protecting lives and property in the country. Hello! Did you not say this before going and re-electing President Buhari? The fact that he did nothing in his first term. Nothing. Even the things that he came out very strongly when he was campaigning for his first election, and he said, you know what, after you elect me, 100 days into my leadership, Boko Haram will be a thing of the past. But what have we seen? Fast forward, after 4 years, nothing to show for. He was still elected back. Why? Why are these important voices in Nigeria? Why did they not come out and question before this thing got out of hand? Why are they waiting until so many people have died? Why are they waiting until a lot of properties have been destroyed? Why are they waiting until when now the rest of us are anxious about our own security because of the insecurity by Boko Haram up there? And now they're coming out, and it's when now they're saying that the government have shown. They say the failure of the government to arrest the criminals showed its insincerity. But of course, I mean, have you just woken up to this matter? Have you just realized that all of a sudden Nigeria is very insecure? Come on now. And the body now is appealing for the international community to come to the aid of Nigeria government in the fight against Boko Haram insurgency and Fulani terrorists who want to graze our country, in quotes. That is what they said, that the Fulani terrorists, they called them the Fulani terrorists because that is who they are. And the government has allowed them. And you remember that program that the government was introducing last year that was very controversial, that could allow the Fulanis to be and build their huts all over the country and to be allowed to graze all over the country and to be allowed to basically spread the insecurity all over the country. And we knew which areas of Nigeria they were going to target. Of course, it is in Biafra that really they were going to make sure that the Fulanis could go graze, and they could do it with impunity. And of course, they had a mission, and after an uproar, I don't know if this matter, if this program has been implemented to just allow the grazers, to go, the Fulanis to just graze in any part of Nigeria. Remember, I can't remember the name of that program that they were supposed to be doing that. So I don't know if this really happened. So now, Tobechi Lemeke, you're saying nobody elected Buhari, but he imposed to the people. And also you're saying he was imported from Sudan. And you're saying the Nigerian elections were rigged just like any other African election. And Ogo Oyibo, you're saying Obama puts Buhari into power, not Nigerians. And Dominic Nwandu, you're saying this cannot happen in the Western world. Buhari should have to resign for lack of insecurity in Nigeria. Ogo Oyibo, you're saying some of the soldiers are not more happy with the current situation in Nigeria today. So what are we seeing? A possible coup or what? What are you saying? So now let's go back to the story of the soldiers. I had just to bring up the matter of the Catholic bishops who had a conference yesterday to talk about this matter, and now they're appealing for the international community to come to the aid of Nigeria. A lot of countries have offered to help President Muhammadu Buhari fight Boko Haram. He has refused. Why do you think he has refused? I think even ECOWAS now has a responsibility to hold him into account. ECOWAS has a responsibility. The Sahel countries, the Sahel region, those countries, they have a responsibility, because we are seeing them trying to put up some measures to curtail Boko Haram. But it cannot be possible while their headquarters there in Nigeria, they continue to thrive and to plot and to carry out, the attacks. So they need to hold President Buhari accountable. They need to pressure him into action. They need to speak. They need to not make it, easy for him, because this is affecting their own countries. Why they just speak about this and just have a blanket condemnation of Boko Haram and not asking themselves why they carry out the attacks in Nigeria. And nobody really seems to, Buhari does not even comment so much even when these attacks happen in the country. They need to question why. I'm telling you, before this thing gets out of hand, it is out of hand, before it gets completely out of hand, and now Nigeria becomes a terrorist hub, and the rest of Africa, and they continue spreading, and see what is happening in Libya now. You cannot contain, because the country created more terrorists, and so it has become a hub of very bad activities that now is affecting the rest of Africa. So now the Nigerian army corporal, when I was reading this story in the morning, and I got it from one of the reliable leading newspapers in Nigeria, very legit. And he's saying that now after these leaders were sent, these army officials were sent on duty, this corporal went on and shot his colleagues, 4 of his colleagues, and also armed 2 of them and shot himself. You tell me, how do we not know that this was an infiltration from Boko Haram? They were supposed to be on field fighting Boko Haram. He turned on his, colleagues and killed them, 4 of them, injured 2, and shot himself. Tell me if this is not a jihadist. Please convince me this is not a jihadist, because it just smells, it reeks from somebody who it seems as though, because why would you kill your colleagues who you're supposed to be in a very important mission with one mission at hand, that is fighting Boko Haram. So maybe these colleagues of his did not know. He thought, we are here to fight, to help contain the security in our country, and we're here to fight Boko Haram. Maybe little did they know that perhaps this soldier was a Boko Haram sympathizer, or perhaps is one of the repentant Boko Harams that was, absorbed into the Nigerian army. As a Biafrans, you have been seeing that a lot of Boko Harams have been. So what they will do now is they might target the soldiers who are anti-Boko Haram and make sure they eliminate them. Look at that. This security, maybe I'm just thinking too much. I put too much of my investigative, journalism cap today, so perhaps I'm overthinking the situation. But what are the possibilities, all right, of this being, a Boko Haram sympathizer or a former Boko Haram, fighter who came in and was absorbed as a repentant soldier? Because why else would he turn against his colleagues when they're out there fighting Boko Haram, killing 4 of them, injuring 2, and then finally killing himself? Tell me that is not a jihadist move. Tell me. Convince me. And why we should trust that President Buhari has the capabilities or the willingness to fight Boko Haram. So the bishops, now they're asking for they're asking for the international community to come help, Nigeria fight Boko Haram. President Buhari said, this matter was technically contained, so there's no help that he requires, and the country is just fine. So people should just leave him alone to continue leading Nigeria while the country goes to the dogs. And this is a conversation we shall have later on. We'll have a special focus on this. And Dr. Matanga, I want to believe, will be here then. And so we are going to have a very in-depth conversation about this same matter. We have to talk about Boko Haram. We have to talk about Nigeria and the precarious position it is putting the rest of us in this continent. We must continue talking to this until Mr. Buhari pays attention, or until Nigerians themselves get tired and decide enough is enough. As much as Biafrans have been the target, but even them, they're not safe themselves. So we must continue talking, because this is no longer a Nigerian problem. This has taken over, and all of us are not safe. All of us are not safe anywhere in this continent. And Okeke Ole, you're saying the soldiers is a Boko Haram member, that all they do kill the Christian is their means. And Miki Bank, you're saying Buhari's government is a terrorist government. He is a Fulani, and all the killings in Nigeria is being perpetrated by Fulani terrorists, and Buhari won't do anything because they are his kinsmen. And who else? Ego Oyibo is saying Nigerian governments were using the military as business because they're selecting the ones they will kill by Boko Haram. This is worrying. Okebe Omot, you're saying our leaders should stop struggling for leadership while Chinese are very busy to send coronavirus to Africa through M-Pesa. Are you serious? Me here, I'm worried because we had a whole plane of them coming in yesterday, and so I don't even know if I want to go. Anyway, I have no business near the airport. I'm not traveling anywhere very soon, so I don't know if I'm becoming paranoid myself. Judging from this news we've been receiving from outside, we've seen people die. And in South Sudan, in North Korea, I hear the first case that was confirmed, the government just shot the person dead. They did not even wait. So I don't know how many people they'll be shooting. Hey, North Koreans, they don't even joke like that. So now, just on that worry here, the Chinese embassy in Kenya has now, the news just coming in, the Chinese embassy in Kenya has reassured Kenyans that all its 239 passengers that landed in Jomo Kenyatta International Airport were screened, adding that they will not dare bring coronavirus into the country. Okay, but the paranoid part of me wants to believe that perhaps they should continue with the self-quarantine measure until perhaps they go through another screening by the Kenyan authorities, and then Kenyans can sit easy. This disease is no joke. It has claimed a lot of lives across the world, so we cannot take chances. Mickey Bank, you're saying God bless you, and God bless you too, and thank you. Eliezer Ezuchuku, you are on spot on. My sister, there are Fulani suicide squads from outside Nigeria coming to be enlisted into Nigerian army. Because why would a soldier turn against other soldiers, murder them, then kill himself? That is a jihadist move. So you're not safe out there. Whether you're Biafran, whether you're from the larger Nigeria, you're not safe. You're not safe. You're not safe. And so it's very worrying there. So can we just talk about South Sudan before I leave a few minutes before we call it a day? But we shall be meeting later in the afternoon to discuss some of these matters. And now IGAD has brought in the good news for first Vice President of South Sudan, Mr. Riek Machar, and now he has been told that he's free to move from house arrest, giving him room to start working. And Mr. Ismail Wais, the Special Envoy for Regional Bloc IGAD, says Dr. Machar will no longer face restrictions of house arrest or require special permission to travel in the region. Very good. I think we had this conversation here yesterday, and I said, you know what, in the spirit of just unity and cohesion and forgiveness and all of that nice things that we want to believe is happening in South Sudan, I'm not sure, but we want to believe is happening in South Sudan, and in the spirit of coming together and new beginnings, Mr. Riek Machar sanctions needs to be lifted so that he's able to fully function as the head of the deputy head of state of South Sudan. So I'm happy that those sanctions have been lifted. So now Riek Machar, you have no excuse, start working and And the bigger task is bringing the people of South Sudan together and also, inspiring confidence to the people of South Sudan so that they can even want to come back to the country and help in rebuilding and help in and come back and settle back and start their lives back there in South Sudan. There are people who are forced out of that country who wants to come back. There are people who are still in the refugee camps. And from what they've gone through this tumultuous 6 years, some South Sudanese, I don't know how you're going to convince them to leave the refugee camps and go back to their villages, which are others who were burnt, some women who were raped, and others had horrifying experiences. So it will take a lot, but please, one step at a time. And as long as there is a will, there's always a way, but you have to convince the people of South Sudan and inspire confidence that indeed they have a government who cares and who will ensure that they're safe and that level of madness and nonsense does not return, and their security as a people becomes a concern. Paul Kagi, you're saying Chadian soldiers was in Nigeria before backing the government fighting Boko Haram. What happened? Which one? Paul Kagi, I don't even understand that story, but perhaps I look up for that story there. And Paul Kagi is saying it is not a good time to travel. My sister wishing safe travel. Even here, our government banned travel to China. I am not, look here, even if I was to travel, not China, not now. I don't know. This will not be the right time to go, to tour China anyway, because unless I'm going there for business, which I don't have any business links with China, anything that would have to. But no, thank you. Let me just sit around here and just wait until things calm down. I'm not ready to court death like that. No. And so we've seen an alliance of groups in South Sudan that have not signed the peace agreement have now reached out to the government, and they're saying they want to be included. And they're urging now the transitional government of the national unity to engage them in talks so that they can all work towards a lasting peace. And I think this is a good move. Let's bring everybody to the table. Let's create an extra seat so that everybody that needs to be on the table should be on the table, because the peace in South Sudan requires all these warring parties to come and join the table and talk and move this country forward. So I think also the government should reach out to this group and just have talks with them and see how the country can move forward. So that also is very welcome. And a senior South Sudanese official has rejected criticism by United Nations Human Rights Council that his country is a serious violator of human rights. Geez, you think? So you were upset that the United Nations, there's a report that was presented last week to the United Nations about the high human rights violations, and they're saying they're following up with certain individuals and they're preparing the charge sheets. I don't know if it will be at the ICC, I'm not sure. And so this official in the government of South Sudan is coming out and saying no such thing happened in South Sudan. I don't know how change is supposed to come if leaders cannot learn to take responsibility. A lot of human rights violations happened in South Sudan. I don't even live in South Sudan. I've never been to South Sudan, but from here I know, and there are proofs, legitimate proofs that have come up to show. So this government official wants to come out and deny. That is not the way to healing and reconciliating a country. You have to take responsibility, and the government of South Sudan must own to their part, their contribution to the mess. So when you see these few people, I don't know if he's speaking for President Salva Kiir, because if he is, he needs to shut up. The government has equal contribution to the misery, the pain and anguish the people of South Sudan found themselves in. That is not something they called upon for themselves. That is something that these leaders, caused for them. So when the government wants to absolve itself from the blame, the country is not going to heal. Mr. President Salva Kiir, you must come out and own your part to the mess that you caused in South Sudan. Mr. Riek Machar, you must come out very strongly and own your part to the mess, and other players that contributed to the mess that is South Sudan. So this senior Sudanese official coming in and criticizing and rejecting, this report by the United Nations that says the country is a serious violator of human rights. You are a violator of human rights. the leadership there is a high violator of human rights. If you cannot protect your own people, if within the government itself has a militant group, what is the work of the militant group if it's not to do illegal things? That is why it is a militant group. If it's not to violate people, if it's not to cause human rights abuses, what? So the leadership, the first step towards healing and finding justice and peace and reconciliation in that country is taking responsibility for your part in the mess in South Sudan. So President Salva Kiir, if this person is not speaking on your behalf, please tell him to shut up, find a seat somewhere and just sit down. Such careless sentiments is not going to take South Sudan anywhere and is not going to help in healing of the country. And taking responsibility and accountability, that is the only way true justice and true reconciliation and true healing can take place there in South Sudan. I get exhausted with these leaders of South Sudan. I'm even out of breath. I think I need to go now. Paul Kagyu saying, Miriam, the government in Juba trying to escape the issue of accountability with their current formation of transitional government of national unity. I tell you, I need to go. Ego, I think the Chadian military was in Nigeria, were helping the Nigerian military to fight against Boko Haram, but the reason they left was because they found out that the sponsor of Boko Haram was the Nigerian army. This is the matter that I think Paul Kagi had brought in, and I did not have a full understanding. Oh, thank you so much, my co-host. I think now you're helping me even with the research, and I appreciate. Please, can you show up back here at 3 p.m. because we shall be back with this matter, and I'll need your engagement and the rest of you who have made this show a success. So I hope to see you here later, or maybe with Doctor. He will be the one, or maybe I'll join him. I don't know, and we shall be looking at this matter. But for now, thank you so much. I think I need to take a break, and then I will see you here. Take care of yourselves, and thank you so much for watching. My name is Miriam Agutu. Good afternoon.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.